relevant, innovative, global. These are words we use to describe St. Andrews today, and the same words used decades ago by the founders of St. Andrews School as they embarked on an undertaking most would shy away from. Our head of school commissioned this video archive project not because of any vision, but because of his appreciation for those that came before him. This greatest generation of St. Andrews supporters teaches us much about paying it forward. Today, when current students attend classes in Bell, Compton, Skinner, or Johnson, they're benefiting from those who had a vision and a philanthropic spirit. As St. Andrews becomes more relevant than ever to our community, it makes sense to honor our founders who were able to see the impossible become a reality. I consider myself fortunate to have been a part of Independent Presbyterian Day School, a charter student here on this campus, and one of the first classes to receive a St. Andrews diploma, and now a parent of 3 future graduates. On behalf of Mr. Toth and our Board of Trustees, we hope this short feature honors those who dream big and those who are still dreaming.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely pleased to announce that after 3 years of study, organization, and preparation, the fund drive for securing commitments to enable us to build St. Andrews on the Marsh will begin April 4th, 1977. These words, provided by Mr. Gus Bell, mark the beginning of St. Andrews School as we know it today. The school traces its beginning to 1947, when Independent Presbyterian Church opened a kindergarten for 4- and 5-year-olds. Over the years, other grades were added, and in 1978, the first and only class graduated from Independent Presbyterian Day School. St. Andrews considers the 10 members of this class to be its first alumni. Several involved leaders realized the need for another independent college preparatory school in the area. Gus Bell and Charles Compton took the lead on this enormous endeavor.
Gus and Charlie they were the two that really get all the credit for St. Andrews being here today. Charlie and Gus took on the job of moving the school. And I think you have to step back a minute and think about what they did.
Our founders, our board had a vision. They knew what they wanted and they went after it. And I think that's it. It wouldn't have made it if it hadn't been that way.
Their first goal was to find the perfect location. In the late 70s, Wilmington Island was becoming one of the fastest growing suburbs in Savannah.
Well, this goes back to the mid-70s. Charlie Compton and I were on the Independent Presbyterian Church Day School board. And we were limited on what we could do, what we could expand, money we could bring in being single denomination. So we decided to be a community private school. So we found a piece of land out on Wilmington Island, and so it turned out to be easy and a perfect fit.
In the fall of '78, the doors opened on Bell Hall, Compton Gym, and St. Andrews on the Marsh.
They came out here in '78, in November of '78, with just 2 buildings, and the kids ate in the hallways, and there was no Skinner Hall, there was no dining hall.
But at that time, we didn't have a cafeteria. Children, we went through the gym, and one of the coaches' offices was the cafeteria. Everybody worked. They had to, because we were building. If we had a field that needed to be fixed for athletics, we had parents out there fixing it. When there's a need, you pitch in and you do it. And that's good.
The school quickly outgrew these 2 buildings, and expansion was on the horizon.
And then in early '85, whether through golf or gin or whatever, we got Herb Skinner involved.
I was too good a friend of Gus to say no. I think that Gus had pretty much burned himself out. So then he asked me to be chairman, and I accepted. So that's really how I got in, because Gus sort of convinced me to.
In October 1986, Skinner Hall was dedicated. The 18,000 square foot building included science labs, an art studio, a professional stage, and for the first time, a dining hall.
And they were kind enough to, say we'd like to name it after me, which I was really honored. And when we had the ceremony here, my daughter Elizabeth was fairly young. So Elizabeth comes up to me and say, "Hey Dad," she said, "this is really cool." I said, "Well, yeah, it is, Elizabeth, but why do you say that?" She says, "You got this building named after you and you didn't even have to die." I mean, I'm just glad to have been a part of this. I mean, I'm proud of this, this building and all the buildings and what's been accomplished here and what small part I might have had to play in it.
One moment, it's when St. Andrews won the state basketball championship, and all the players signed a ball, for the state champs, and brought it to Dad, and that was just I'll never forget. He was very, very proud of that basketball. He was pretty close, near to his end, and he died when he was 66. So he passed away in 1994, but certainly always had a special part in his heart for St. Andrews and Gus and all the guys that helped make it happen.
The school enjoyed tremendous growth until the mid-90s. During this decade, however, enrollment declined, and for the first time in the school's history, its future was in jeopardy.
We were losing students. A few children left, and then all of their friends would go with them. So you would have a class decimated because 14 people would leave.
If they were a good athlete, they might go to Benedictine, okay, or they might go someplace else where they could play sports that we, at that point in time, really weren't able to offer. We had no field house, nothing, none of the facilities we got today. So it was in the 90s and back in the 80s, we had a lot of soul-searching discussions as to whether we were going to be able to make it or not.
Frank Brown was the treasurer at the time, and he presented a little slideshow talking about where we were and what we needed to be able to make it till the next year, make payroll through the summer and so forth. And people wrote checks and left them in a bowl. Were it not for those kind of things, we wouldn't be here. The key thing was, no matter what was going on, it was internal, board knew about it, maybe other people thought we had problems or whatever, but the quality of the programs never suffered. Faculty is the key. I mean, we have buildings and those are nice, but if you took the same faculty and put them in a tent, we could still have a pretty good program.
Thanks to strong leaders and a dedicated faculty, the school ended the decade with one of its largest graduating classes and a state football championship title.
Friday night, 11 or so, telephone rings. We had just won our very first varsity football game. We beat Eagles Landed. It was a big deal. We sent them off like crazy, and cheered them on and had, oh yeah. It was a big deal.
Continuing on this path of success, the school expanded in many ways. By the early 2000s, the Board of Trustees effectively doubled the size of campus by expanding into the former YMCA building next door.
There was a perception in the community that we were not financially stable. That turned around when we bought the property here. All of a sudden people said, well, maybe they are going to make it.
After an official opening, the building was named the Neal C. Johnson Lower School.
Not only was I honored by it, but it's perfect for me because this is really where my interest has always been. I've always been an admirer of people like Joe Lamas and Kelly.
As a head of school, one of my goals was always to hire the very best teachers, and then you let them teach. I knew that there were wonderful teachers here, and I could trust them. And that's always been a foundation here, is that caring attitude and the respect of the students and the teachers for the students. The teachers have always respected the learners, And so that sets up a whole dynamic of conversation and education.
And it was a good home away from home. St. Andrews was very dear to me, and I feel fortunate and blessed. You know, there's a tradition at St. Andrews where the faculty and administrators and board members are allowed to present their children's diploma. And I didn't tell Julie I was going to do it, and she was surprised. And that's a real moment.
St. Andrews is much more than the bricks and mortar of the buildings, but rather the people, past and present.